Yeah, we got senior night, senior late night. Got four managers and four players that we're honoring. Hayes Sampson, Thomas Palmer, Cole Kuhn, and Josie. So, it's managers are the people behind the scenes that don't get a ton of love, a ton of credit, but man, they put in so much work. And so much time and so much dedication, and what we do wouldn't be possible, without the hard work that they put in every single day. They rebound for our guys at all different times of the day and at night, and just do a lot of the things that they don't get a ton of recognition for, and I wish we could recognize them more. So, just super appreciative of them and all their efforts. Players, Reed Trapp, C.J. Williams, two of our walk-ons, two guys that have been on our scout team for a couple of years and have just continuously gotten better each and every year, each and every practice, and have helped us, continue to just get better, and help us get prepared for games. And then obviously Keyshawn Murphy and Keyshawn Hall, having their senior nights. So, really hoping that, we can send those two guys out on a strong note. They've had the opportunity to play in front of the best fans in college basketball this year. And, hopefully we can do it one more time for them on Tuesday night. So, just really appreciative of, all the contributions that, all of our seniors have made to this year's team. So, that, take any questions.
Stephen, I know you said you need to maybe look at the film a little bit regarding the three-point defense against Ole Miss, but just after looking at that, I mean, just what, I guess, kind of stood out to you looking at the film on that?
Yeah, unfortunately, just a lot of the same mistakes. Just kind of overhelping off the strong side when we're not supposed to. When guys drive at middle, it requires help, and guys, they knock down shots. I think it's just a lot of the same stuff that we've been doing. Some of the mistakes that we've been making, consistently just kind of coming back and, biting us in the butt. So, just got to be able to, translate some of the drill work into the games. Phillip closes out with his hands down, on like the first possession, and we work on that in practice every single day, and Phillip's more accountable than anybody, and he recognized it right away. So it's just small details like that of stuff that we work on in practice every single day has got to be able to translate into the games, and it just hasn't done that as of late, especially on those 3-point shots.
You talked earlier this season about having an issue with guys not always being on time. Saturday, you mentioned, Murph not starting because of that. And I guess how concerning is it for that to still be an issue at this stage in the season?
Yeah, Murph's been late once all year, so that was an honest mistake. And, I have so much love for Murph, but I've been pretty consistent in my discipline for guys that haven't been on time, and I can't change that standard just because one guy that's, been consistent all year. Like, everyone's got to get treated fairly and treated the same, and Murph was late one time, and he didn't start because of it, and we just we have a standard, and if guys are going to be making this amount of money, expectations and standards have to be held, and that's how we're going to run our program. So I'm not asking a ton, I'm not. And Murph's been phenomenal all year in that aspect. He, his alarm didn't go off, and that happens sometimes. But at the end of the day, guys got to handle that discipline and get on to the next play, and hopefully we can do that moving forward.
As tough as last month, and as you were saying the other night, y'all are probably off now, but you still have a shot to play your way on back into the tournament. How much do you kind of emphasize that, especially with one more home game coming up, obviously Bama coming up next week before whatever happens in the tournament next week?
Yeah, I mean, we're still in control of our own destiny, and if you win these next two, you're probably in. But regardless, you got to take it one game at a time, and we got to do everything we can to beat LSU, and it's in the moment, it doesn't feel that way because obviously we had such a tough string of, over our last 8, and have had a lot of things just not go our way. But at the end of the day, through all the difficulty and all the struggles, we're still in position to make the tournament. And, we just got to try and find a way to have that belief. And, we know it's there. We have 6 really good wins this year against 6 teams that are locks to be in the NCAA tournament. And we just got to find a way. We showed a lot of film of those games yesterday, and they just our guys got to find a way to kind of harness that and just continue to believe, because the coaches are still locked in, and the coaches are still doing everything we can to prepare for these games. And we yesterday was obviously day after a late game. We weren't able to do a ton, but today we obviously need to have a great practice, because we still have a chance to do everything that we want to accomplish, as crazy as that continues to sound. At 15 and 14. We play the schedule that we play, so we put ourselves in position to still be able to get in the tournament if you're not able to win some of those games. So we just got to find a way to stay locked in and stay consistent with what we're doing. And if we can eliminate some of the mistakes that we continuously make on the defensive end, and even the offensive end, and I don't want to just frame it like it's just the defense. We had 16 turnovers that led to 20-something points. Like that's or 14 that led to 18 or 19 points. That's significant. So. We just got to cut down on some of our mistakes that we just, we get up 7 and, we get the ball stolen from us, and, we gamble on defense a couple times, and then we get up 8 in the second half. We do the exact same thing. So we got to value possessions more when we have leads. And if we do that, we can win some of these games.
Stephen, LSU's got, another team with a guard at the top of the scout who's pretty effective from 3. Just what do you see from Max McKinnon when you look at that team and from LSU's offense as a whole?
Yeah, I mean, he can obviously, make threes at a high rate, but you watch the Ole Miss game, and he hit like 6 tough twos, and that's just, he's a really talented scorer. So, our guys got to take some pride in their one-on-one defense, and, would be great for us to be able to lock down a really good player. But, the reason why he's so good and effective is, they got really good players around him too. Sutton is just incredibly productive and does a lot of really good things for him, and their bigs do a great job of getting offensive rebounds and getting him extra possessions. And we got to find a way to shut his water off, because when he scores, they're obviously really effective. I thought Oklahoma did a pretty good job on him. He missed some open ones that he typically makes, but they're a team that's still playing with a lot of confidence and a lot of energy, and they're still playing. It looks like they're still playing with a purpose, and so we got to play with purpose tomorrow night in order to beat them.
Yes, Stephen, going off of that, they've been a pretty good team on the road this year compared to at home. Just kind of what I guess you talked about it just a second ago, but just what have you seen from them for a team with a 3-13 SEC record? They play hard all the way to the end.
Yeah, I mean, they're 3-6 in true road games this year, and that's all 3 of their SEC wins have been on the road. So, that tells you everything you need to know right there. That they might be more comfortable away from home. So, our guys got to really be locked in, and Ole Miss is kind of the same way. Ole Miss, that was their 3rd true road win as well. So that's another team that might be better on the road than they are at home. So. Got to understand that they're going to be coming in because they just came off a difficult one at home, similar to us, and they're going to be coming in here fighting for everything.
When you talk about mistakes on offense leading to turnovers, kind of what's the biggest thing y'all are looking to kind of slow down? Because that had not been a problem for y'all in back-to-back games until last week.
Yeah, just trying to execute the simple things that we talk about. As soon as you draw 2 guys, get off it, and every time we did that, we got a wide open shot. Every time we didn't do that, it led to a turnover. IQ plays, late in the first half. At the very end there, we get an offensive rebound on the free throw set, and we turn the ball over instead of bringing it out and, trying to go for the last shot. Just small things like that. Not throwing strikes on passes. We had 2, Todd had 2 entry passes, one to Elijah and one to KO that both resulted in turnovers. So it's just small things like that. I'd rather us turn the ball over being aggressive than just being sloppy. And we got to find a way to cut that down, because great teams are going to take advantage of you, and they're going to score on those opportunities, and that's what Ole Miss did a really good job of. And you could look at Texas A&M and say the same thing. Like teams where we turn the ball over against have taken advantage of it, and so we got to try and eliminate those mistakes offensively.
Anything else? All right. Thanks.
Thanks.